Hello, hello, hello. What up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome. Welcome one, welcome all to the Villain Report. It's Victory Monday. Let me get this thing all set up in here. Right in there. Get in there. Get in there. Gather round. Gather around, my faithful friends, as the Lions have beaten the New York Giants. That's right. My name is Russell Wayne. I am the UDFA of sports podcasting, the unwanted, the unfiltered, the unapologetic voice of the fan base that bleeds Honolulu blue. So gather around, Victory Monday, the Lions Villain Report. The Lions pulled off a thriller in overtime, 34-27 over the New York G-Men. That's right. The Villain squad celebrates as Detroit climbs to 7-4 and stays right in the NFC North hunt. And there we go. Dan Campbell's crew battled through adversity. Jared Goff delivered when it mattered the most. Aidan Hutchinson sealed the deal in OT. The grit is real. The Villains got something to say about it. And number one is Gibbs is him. Oh my gosh, a 264 total yards, all-purpose yards in that game. He took it over. Grit wins again. The Giants really let that game go. Gibbs is him. We're going to talk about Kelvin Sheppard's defense in here. NFC North Check-In. How did the Lions stack up against the rest of the field? So drop your takes into the comment, hit the share button, and let's do this. This episode is brought to you by Fanatics.com. That's right. If you bleed Honolulu blue, or if you bleed any of those other crappy teams, that's right. And if you follow a different team, that's not all that good, but you need to gear up like the real one over at our Fanatics, our official merch partner. This is what you do. You click the link. Or no, hit that QR code right there. Save up to 25% off of your order from our affiliate marketing partners over at Fanatics. Every click supports the channel and the page and lets the world know that the fans of your team do it bigger and they do it better. Villain Squad don't do knockoffs. We do official. We do Fanatics. So get yours. The Villain Squad just crossed over 96,000. We are shooting our way up to 100,000. Thank you to the ones that are liking, commenting, and sharing this content. If you're a fan of Detroit sports, I don't know why you're not following me already. So help us get up in the algorithm. It helps Facebook know to show this content to other football fans that are out there. And we appreciate anybody that does that. It's faith, family, and then football in that order. On here, we use football. We don't let football use us. And yes, the Lions have defeated the New York G-Men. I'll tell you what, that was a hard game to watch as we're going through this thing. But the thing is you got to play 4 quarters of football. And the Lions proved that, and this has happened to the G-Men a whole bunch of times this year. And a win is a win. There is stuff that we need to work on. There's no doubt about it. But the thing is a win is a win. This isn't some kind of alarm that needs to be sounded right here. The Lions got to play better if they want to win in the playoffs. But for right now, it's about stacking wins and getting into the playoffs. So I don't care how that happens, as long as they get the stuff fixed by the time that the playoffs roll around so we can even get into the playoffs. Because right now, even with the win, the Lions are still on the outside looking in. But the good thing is our destiny is in our own hands right now. So we just got to take care of business, and we will pass the teams. You got to win those games. Faith, family, and football. What's up? Let's say hello to everybody. David's in the house. What's up, David? The first one.
You like that?
You are in there. Right there, Big M, salute.
You like that?
Salute, Big M's in the house. David, good evening. Faith,
You
family,
like
and football. Go crazy, let's go. Steve's in the house.
You like that? You like that?
The diehard Lion fan is in the house.
You like
That's
that?
right. What's up, buddy? Let's do this. Let's look at this together. How are you feeling after the win? Hard wins beat hard losses. I like that comment right there. Because I've seen so much. I'm so disappointed with some Lion fans that are out there. It's like you're looking for any reason to hate on the team and be negative about the team. And, you know, you do it after wins, you do it after losses. And I understand that there's things that need to be fixed. But if you want to start riding this SOL train and freaking out every single time that you see something in a game that you don't like, then you're totally missing it. And by the way, you're really just exposing yourself for not watching the team back when they stunk. Because that's the biggest difference between this team and old teams that the Lions have had. What happened to old teams? Well, the old teams, you know what? I had like a flashback. Because when Matt Stafford was on this team, I remember that the Lions started out quick. I want to say that they were like 5-3, and everybody was thinking that they were going to be great, and they ended up losing a whole bunch of games in a row. And it was the New York Giants that eliminated the Lions from the playoffs that year. And I started having flashbacks to the SOL Lions, where you're just waiting for the ground, the rug to be pulled out from underneath you. You're waiting for Lucy to pull the ball out and for Charlie Brown to fall on his back. And that didn't happen in this game. Like, you want to cry SOL? I'm going to call you out, because an SOL moment is that game being lost. They find a way to lose the games that they should win. That's SOL. SOL doesn't come back and win games in overtime. We ain't trying to get style points. There is no style. Style points are for people missing it. I mean, they did not lose the game. They played like crap. They probably put out 3 quarters of ass football. And you know what? The team showed up when it needed to show up. Goff comes into the fourth quarter, 9 for 13. It was dropping dimes in that fourth quarter, and then Jahmyr Gibbs took over. Think about that. We got a running back that will take the game over. You want to protect Goff? Oh, we need offensive line. No, you need to have a running game. Put the fear of God in there. Jahmyr Gibbs can take a game over. What's another one of the things that I keep hearing on the, oh my God, it's the 2-9 line, or it's a 2-9 New York Giants. Yeah. It's the 2-9. I can't believe you had so much trouble with the 2-9 Giants. Well, let's explore that now. Let's explore that. And you know what? This is a great group of people in here, because I think most of everybody in here agrees with me when it comes with this. We're not gonna over analyze a win and try to make it sound like a loss. That's not what we're going to do on this show. That may be something that goes on every other podcasting network that's out there. That may be the thing. Every other podcast seems to be smarter than Dan Campbell, and they want to figure out, why the Lions almost lost. I can't believe they almost lost. Well, let's discover what this is. The Lions, they win 34-27 in overtime the week before. So we're going to criticize the Lions, but, the same Giants team went into Lambeau the week before and had them on the ropes. In the fourth quarter, they were up 20-19, and the Packers were able to pull it out. Ain't nobody saying that stuff about the Packers. We're still talking about how great Micah Parsons is and everything. And you almost lost to the Giants. But you know what? You didn't hear me say that. You didn't hear me say that because I think it's a cop-out. I think it's a good victory for the Packers to beat them in that way, and it's a good thing for the Lions to beat them in that way. And let's go back the week before that. The Bears. The Bears were down 10 in the fourth quarter, had to score 14 points to win. Right there. The Eagles put a beat down on them, but they've been without a starting quarterback. They go Jackson Dart. They had Russell Wilson at the beginning of the year. They lost a 1-point game to the Broncos. And the Broncos were 5-2 at the time. So we're going back here. They beat the Chargers. So this is not, and they lose a 3-point game to the Cowboys. This Giants team isn't as bad as the record shows. Like if you noticed last week, I didn't take the under, the 12 points. It's too many points. It was too many points. I knew the Lions weren't going to run away with this thing. I thought there was a chance that they could run away with it. But the Lions are the better team. But it is what it is. I mean, you're talking about Jameis Winston had the game of his life. That was probably the best game of his career, but statistically. But if you watch that game, it was like, I'll say it now because we won the game, but Jameis Winston got lucky a lot in that game. They were running. They ran into him in the backfield. And this dude's running to the outside, and he's chucking the ball off of his back foot and throwing prayers up in the air. And his guys were coming down with him. So I can put some of that on the defense. You got to be in better position. They got busted on a couple of trick plays, throwing the ball back to him. But the play, they weren't graceful plays at all. The catch, and he was getting demolished when he was getting rid of these balls thrown off of his back foot. It didn't look nice. It wasn't like he was carving us up or anything like that. All of the big plays were lucky plays. And it always seemed like they had some type of, and I won't blame referees or anything like that, but there were a couple calls in there that were like questionable that were in there that extended a couple of the plays too. So it was like they had, for a team that had everything working out for them, and the Lions still weathered the storm. So I don't know. A victory is a victory. They escaped out of there. They put it into overtime. Jahmyr Gibbs decided that he was going to win the game for the Lions right there. And before you give all of the credit to Jahmyr Gibbs, you need to look at how big the hole was that Jahmyr Gibbs ran through in that overtime. He could have driven a semi through that hole. The O-line, believe it or not, deserves some credit, especially on that run. Now, Jahmyr Gibbs is fast, but Jahmyr Gibbs did not get touched at any time in that game. Untouched. So if you want to tell me that Jahmyr Gibbs is the only one that deserves the credit because you're mad at the offensive line for playing like shit for 3 quarters, that's fine. That's on you. You can do that. You're entitled to that because Jared Goff was sacked 3 times in the game. The O-line has to be better. They need to be more consistent. There's no doubt about that. But here's the thing. When your team shows up when it needs to show up, that's the most important thing. That's the most important thing. Penei Sewell, there you go, Steven. Sewell is the man. Sewell went up against Brian Burns in that game, and Brian Burns didn't get home. No sacks, no pressure. Sit down. Sit down. Don't worry about it. You ain't got to worry about the right side. They got interior pressure, but that was expected too. Dexter Lawrence is a beast. One of the things at the beginning of the season, when you're looking at this New York Giants team, they had a good defense. They drafted Abdul Carter, number 2 overall. You already had Brian Burns and Thibodeau. Dexter Lawrence. So, this New York Giants team was not as bad as what their record showed. And they've proven it 3 weeks in a row. You're talking about the entire NFC North. All of us had trouble against them. All of us. The Packers barely beat them. The Bears barely beat them. And we barely beat them. So, instead of giving the Lions crap about, oh my God, the sky is fun, how about we just give some credit to the New York Giants for not being a punk bitch team? Sorry, excuse my French. So what did you think about the win? Going back through here. Steven thinks that Jackson Dart's going to be pretty good. Big M says they scored 2 touchdowns on trick plays. Yeah, I'm with you. Diehard Lion says that we have Kirby. His guys don't get those. The villain is the real one. I try to be as real as I can be. And I'm not beyond putting a little criticism in there. That defense, I went to bat for that defense last week. I'm thinking that this defense could be elite. And for 3 quarters, they were not. They were not elite. But in that 4th quarter, they were. They shut down. They put the roadblocks in when they needed to put the roadblocks in. Down 10, they had to put the blocks in. And credit to the coaching. They pulled out all the stops. You're talking trick plays, flea flickers that they may not have been pretty, but they worked. So let me know how you feel about that. Like, I think that when if you want to bring up SOL, if you want to go back and try to say these things right here, if you got that post-traumatic same old Lions running through your veins a little bit, then I would say that that's nonsense. Because if this was the same old Lions lose this game. No doubt in my mind. You go back into the history of the Lions. If you want to cry SOL to me and say this was like an SOL type of thing, go back through all of the games that the Lions played when you were going through SOL, because I went through all of it. I went through all those games. You show me a 10-point deficit in the fourth quarter where Lions come back. I can think of one for sure. It's the one that I really remember. Matt Stafford coming back down 21 to the Dallas Cowboys. You know, Matt Stafford killed SOL for a couple years while he was here. I would say between, 2012, 2000 to maybe 2014, 2011, I think it was. Whatever one that we went 11-5 went into the playoffs under Jim Schwartz. I think that was maybe those 11. But outside of those 3 years, you can't really point to overtime comeback victories too much. It's a nice comeback. That's a poised team that's not going to let anything get them down too much to where they ever feel like they're out of the game. They don't slouch their shoulders back. They don't sit there and whine and complain and start blaming. Because there were some bad things that happened in there. Another narrative here, another narrative that loves to get out there is this Jared Goff thing. And I just get, it drives me crazy, man. It's like, no football. I mean, I'm not trying to rip anybody down or anything like that, but it's lazy. Stop being lazy with your takes out there. And it's easy just to go, oh, hey, wish that Jared Goff could run. It's Jared Goff's fault. We need a quarterback. But yet, the national media keeps nitpicking Goff's every move, ignoring the drops, ignoring pressure, ignoring the fact that New York has played everyone tough, including the Packers, and the offense is out here putting up almost 500 yards. Now, over half of that was Gibbs being sonic, but Goff steadied the ship in the fourth quarter. He made critical throws when he needed to, and then Gibbs closed the show. Detroit walked out of that overtime period with only one stat that actually matters. And guess what stat that is? The standings. 7-4. The narrative merchants can sell whatever noise that they want. But the villain, he ain't buying up all these negative takes that are out there. So, are you buying up all these negative takes that the media's thrown out there? Is the sky falling after a win? Or are we just in the middle of a season? In the middle of a season? Or are we just in the middle of a season? Let's see. Let's see if we got anybody in there. And I'm going to shut this music down, because I may take a couple of these bites and I may throw them back out there. Because I don't get to get live very much. And I appreciate everybody that's in here live right now, because, I do chop up some of these takes and I throw them back out there. And I appreciate having a live audience in here. I appreciate people jumping into the comments. Oh, Jason MC says we bought the Lamborghini and crashed it in week 1 Skull. Hey, Jason's in for the crow. Hey, man, I appreciate that. I appreciate rival fans coming in and eating the crow, because the Lord knows I've had to eat crow. I've had ate crow 4 times this year. I don't mind coming in and eating the crow when my team loses. Trying to help. Die Hard Lion says, don't trust anyone who says SOL. Anybody that says SOL has been holding SOL in their pocket, and they're waiting for any chance to pull it out and show it to you. That sounded bad. I don't want anybody pulling anything out and showing it to me. You keep that in your pocket. I don't want anything to do with it. Ian says that I'm concerned about the O line, plain and simple. Starts there, and that's fine. That's a legitimate concern. I am not going to push back too much on that.
Say hello to my little friend.
Thank you for that comment. But what I will say about that is that O-line showed up in the 4th quarter and overtime. I mean, I know everybody wants to give all of that credit to Gibbs just because he is phenomenal. I mean, yeah.
We're going to bite a kneecap off.
Gibbs is phenomenal. But that O-line opened up some giant holes. Those 2 big touchdowns that he had, he was able to run right through that line, especially the one that was in overtime. Now, he broke a couple tackles on the other run and used his speed, but that overtime run, that was all O-line and blocking. He just had to be fast. That was it. So the O-line had an awful 3 quarters, and they decided to be up on it. Now, I'm not going to give the O-line a full pass on it, but I will also say this, is we've been going up against some pretty damn good defensive lines. And I put Minnesota on that list too, and not necessarily because they have the physical defensive line, but they tricked us in that game. You got to give credit to Brian Flores' defense. He schematically confused our young offensive linemen in that game. And, going up against the Philadelphia Eagles, that might be the best defensive line, especially in the interior. It was like our weakest part of our team had to go up against probably the strongest version, the 2 defensive tackles. I don't think there's 2 defensive tackles that are better than Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. I'm not going to give that to the Green Bay Packers, but we'll see. We'll see. Green Bay Packers got a pretty good defensive line, so life isn't going to get any easier. It ain't going to get easier the week after that either, with Dallas coming to town. And they just traded for Quinnen Williams. And they just beat the Philadelphia Eagles. So you're sitting at 7-4. You needed this win. You needed this win. If you didn't get this win, I would say that the playoff hopes would have been dim. You still need to go down the stretch right here and probably win 4 out of the 6 games. You can't. I don't think that you can get in going 3-3. I don't think that you're going to get in the playoffs winning 10 games. There's a chance that you could miss the playoffs going 10-7. I think the only way you guarantee yourself to get into the playoffs is you got to win 4 out of 6. That's a harsh reality, especially with the teams that we got to play. Amen, amen. There we go. Jason MC bought the land. Yeah, I agree with this one too. Waymo needs to start making catches ASAP. He has really been boom or bust. He's really been boom or bust. Johnny Gas is in the house. What's good, villain? Hard to feel good about that yesterday win, but a win is a win. I feel great about the win, Johnny. I mean, I don't know how you get down about a win at all. I don't understand that. I mean, I understand that we got to put stuff out, but I can be critical of the offensive line. And I mean, defensively, come on, Johnny. We got to look at that defense. And I mean, I think Jameis Winston, maybe I'm just a homer, but I think Jameis Winston got lucky in that game. You know, they were pulling out all the stops. You know, coaching wise, they were trying all the trick plays and they were all working, but he was chucking balls off of his back foot. You know, we were a half a step away from getting sacks on half of those. So I want the defense to play better. And if I'm Kelvin Sheppard, you know, especially with how good the defense has been playing lately, I think there's going to be a come to Jesus moment in that defensive room. And I have a hard time being negative after wins. Because wins are so hard to come by. You know, if this is an SOL moment, then, you know, I think that you don't watch football. I don't think that you've watched this team, because SOL moment, if this is SOL, then you haven't been watching, because SOL loses this game 10 times out of 10. If you want to cry, same old Lions, then I mean, you've been holding that in your pocket. You're trying. You wanted to pull it out. You were waiting for the Lions to lose. If you're sitting there with an SOL comment, you were waiting for that because you really wanted to bust the SOL out because you thought we were going to lose, and we didn't. But yet you want to bring it out anyway. Detroit fan man says that, wait, just saw Tate cut off his mullet. I don't know. Is that like Samson? Is that going to get rid of all of his strength? That's what happened to me. Where did my mullet go? You can't cut off the mullet. Oh. Adam says, terrible display from your so-called savior, LOL. Love you, bro. No skull. Stop chasing chicken. Ian says they did it when it counted. I miss Ragnow. Oh man, my jersey. That was my jersey. That's my jersey right there. I love the O-line, man. I miss Frank Ragnow. I miss Frank. Frank the Tank. Minnesota and those blitz packages. American Boxer. What's up, buddy?
You like that?
I'm not counting the offensive line out. Goff or the secondary. But they're not working together. Well, which causes me to think that the coaching and not necessarily Dan Campbell. And to that I say, you have to play 4 quarters. And I admit that all of the things that you just said were spot on for 3 quarters. But good teams show up in the 4th quarter. Because I like to compare football games to like a tennis match where you're talking about possessions and you're just volleying the ball back and forth. And to get the point, you got to put somebody off balance, and you got to show up at the end of the play. And it's all about how you finish. If you're finishing the games strong, I mean, that there's something about that. How you finish the game. Like what type of guys? Like what are the plays that really matter? There's lots of first and second downs. There's lots of plays that extend drives. You're going through, but how many of the plays are really that, bring your emotions up and where it's really, really tense, the clutch moments, the third downs. I mean, really, there's a lot of stats that are out there in the world that people like to look at. Some people look at PFF. Some people, look at the stat news or whatever one's out there. But to me, the most important third and fourth downs and fourth quarter plays when the game is on the line. Everything else is just a volley. You got to put yourself, obviously you need to make enough plays during the first three quarters to put yourself in a position to where you can be in those, high intensity plays. And if you're playing real good, you can blow a team out and they never get to those plays. But how do you play in the most intense moments? Fourth and whatever, third and whatever. Do you make those plays or you don't make those plays? So a bunch of stuff happened for three quarters. But when it was time to be crunch time, then they stepped up. Johnny's got a good point here. What might be more concerning is the lack of true pressure from the defensive line. The secondary couldn't hold up. I agree with half of that, but the thing is when do you want them to show up, Johnny? That's what I'll ask you. When do you want your team to show up? Because you could argue that Aidan Hutchinson was invisible for the whole game. I know that he had some QB hits. I don't know how much of a stat that really matters, but the thing is you had your star player show up on the most important play of the game. The most important play of the game is the last play of the game. The game that ended the game, or the play that ended the game, is the most important play. And that's when Hutchinson showed up. He collapsed that pocket. That was a beautiful defensive line move because you had interior pressure. Hutchinson shot past the guy, and the interior pressure made Winston have to escape right into the loving arms of Hutchinson. And that's what you want to see. That was picture perfect on that last play of the game. The end comes back around. Hutchinson, with his relentless motor, ends the game. And that's where the most important thing, I mean, it's concerning. It's concerning when you see your guys play bad at times. But what do you do in the most important moments of the game? What is your demeanor in the most important parts of the game? And Johnny, if you're out there and you have the ability to pop in, you know that you have it. We can have a conversation in here too. I don't mind that either. I'm just talking. So if you want to come in, Johnny, that's fine. If you want to have a conversation with me, that's cool. And I get your concern. I'm not going to give anybody a hard time that wants to point out the flaws in the game. Because for three quarters, I was frustrated, man. I'm on the verge of tears half the game, where I'm just like, I can't believe how bad this is going on. But a lot of those frustration, it came by going, gosh, Jameis Winston is lucky. A lot of that stuff just appeared to be like luck. It didn't look like it was great, you know? You got busted on those flea flickers, man. You know, you flip that ball out there and he passed the ball back to Jameis. You know, that wide open, got busted, got his ass busted on both of those. Two bad long plays. Hutchinson. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, here's a good point right here. I like this one. I think Dan punting a little more often was important from a field position standpoint. We didn't have those fourth down moments like in the previous game. I love the fourth down going for it. I do. Because like those clutch moments that I'm talking about, like when you go for it, you're making your offense go into that clutch moment. Like, how do you play? If you force those moments when you're going for it on fourth down. And I just think that our guys are wired here to be in those type of moments. I feel good about my team in those type of moments. So, but I don't mind that he's punting the ball and getting field position in there. You know, a couple of those punts where he's putting it inside the 20 right there. I mean, those were on the edge of like Jake Bates' range. I mean, a couple of those punts probably could have been like 60-yard field goals that I think Jake Bates could have made. Detroit Fan Man says, but Russ, did you see that what the Giants right tackle said after the game about Hutch on an island? Kind of wild trash talk like that after a fourth quarter loss. And that's exactly what I'm talking about, Detroit Fan Man. I did see that comment. And you got to play 4 quarters. You got to play 4 quarters. Sometimes you got to play more than 4 quarters. So how did that work out for you? That's what I say to that. You're going to talk trash after your loss? You know, does it really matter? I remember Michael Jordan, you know, some teams could shut down Michael Jordan, but not on the last play of the game. Michael Jordan has a chance to take you out. He's going to take you out. Honestly, I'm so proud of Hutchinson on that. That's what you talk when they talk about Hutchinson's relentless motor, right? The relentless motor. That right there. If that doesn't embody what Hutchinson is, that comment right there by that right tackle. Oh, I had Hutchinson on an island. Yeah, but you got knocked out. You got knocked out. You're going to say you were in a good boxing match? You were dodging? Yeah. Yeah. Pop, 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 pop. Yeah. We're doing good. We're doing good. Pop. See ya. Doesn't matter. You got KO'd. What do we have for him, Johnny?
You've had enough of that shit.
Yeah, talk your trash. Talk your trash after the game. I don't care. That game was hard to stay tuned into. Lots of trudging through that game, trudging through the mud. You got to win games like that. You have to be able to win games like that. And same old Lions teams don't win games like that. Same old Lions teams, those are games that they lose. Same old Lions crowd took a big, big hit. Whether they want to admit it or not, you can keep that SOL in your pocket and keep it there. If you try to show it to me after a win, I'm going to laugh at you because it's nonsense. You want to tell me that the Lions can't win because they almost didn't win? But they won. Nice try. You know, one of the things that Dan Campbell would say at the beginning of the season is like, when you become one of the better teams, what happens is you get every team's best shot. You get the team's best shot. They want to prove something, you know, especially a 2-9 team. Yeah, these big bad Lions think that they're all cool. We're going to you get their best shot. They may get beat up by some other teams, but they're going to try to stay real focused, and they're going to try to beat you. Not that they don't try to beat the other teams, but they got something to prove against you. So you're going to get their best shot. And they tried everything in that game. What's up? Becca's in the house. Good to see you, girl. What's up? So do I think that this brand of football that they played on Sunday would get the W against Green Bay or LA? Playoff teams. Honest question for the reality of where Lions fans are right now. John, all I can say is it's a win, Johnny. I mean, really, the Green Bay Packers just played this team last week. That's what I'll say. And let me look at this because I had these stats brought up right here. And this is just where it's at. Let me find it. I mean, let's look at that. So when I look at this Giants game, Johnny, it's like, would we be able to do that against the Green Bay Packers? Well, let's see. The Green Bay Packers last week were down 20-19 in the fourth quarter, and the New York Giants, they ended up going and getting a touchdown and a 2-point conversion to go up 27-20, and Jameis Winston drove all the way down the field, got into the red zone, and threw an interception with 41 seconds left. So I guess I'll answer your question with a question back at you. Why wouldn't you give the same energy to Green Bay, who also just struggled against the team that we just struggled against? Which, by the way, they're not apologizing for their victory either. So, LA looks insane. I mean, I don't know what I can really say about LA other than we better get better. And the other thing I'll say about LA is there's no guarantee that LA is going to be playing as good as they're playing right now at the end of the year. That's why Dan Campbell always says you got to play the game that you're playing. You know, that's why you don't hear him saying, "Oh, well, we got Green Bay coming up, and we're trying to figure out what we're going to do against Green Bay, but we got to take care of Giants." No, they try to take care of the week that they're in, and they did. So it really don't matter what the games look like. And playoff teams, honest questions for the reality of where Lions fans are. Watch the end of that game, Johnny. Watch the Red Sea part and watch Jahmyr Gibbs run really, really fast for a touchdown. Now, that's a reality that other teams have to look at. You know, I mean, they weren't able to stop that defensive line all day long. But when it came to overtime, the middle of that offensive line looked pretty good, didn't it? Like, I know that we want to give all the credit to Jahmyr Gibbs. I've done this take 3 times today, but that's okay because I want to drive the point home. When it mattered, the offensive line went, oh, There you go, Gibbs. Drive your Lamborghini right through that. And by the way, it run really fast. Jahmyr Gibbs wasn't touched on that last play. The blocking was superb on that last play of the game. And that's all that matters. You put yourself in a position to win, and what did your guys do? On the biggest moments of the game. I mean, think about that. Offensively, what was the last thing that happened? The offensive line had its best play of the game. Part of the Red Sea. Jahmyr Gibbs ran real fast for a touchdown. And what was the last play in the game on defense? Oh, well, Hutchinson hadn't been doing anything all day. Well, Hutchinson on the last play of the game, when it mattered the most, he showed up. And I'll give that same energy to our rival, because in that first game that we played in week 1, when Micah Parsons came around the corner and sacked Jared Goff, that was a big moment. That was a big moment. And Micah Parsons made a big play in a big moment. And you got to give him credit where credit is due. Johnny says, I would have preferred that prior to overtime. Hey, yeah, believe me, Johnny, that was like one of the hardest games I've ever had to watch. That was one of the hardest games that I've ever had to watch. But I've also watched enough games to see SOL teams, the teams that drive me crazy, the ones that bring me back to these moments right here. PTSOL. That's a registered trademark name by the Villain Squad. Post-traumatic same old Lions. I started twitching, feeling my PTSOL. And I admit that I have it. I admit that I have it. I was going through it in the middle of the game. But Jahmyr Gibbs and Aidan Hutchinson made me feel so much better. Because I know that even on the worst days, that 90% of the time, I can count on my big players. I can count on my team to deliver when it matters the most. And that's how you win games in the playoffs. So, we're going to find out. Green Bay just struggled against this team. And we get Green Bay in a couple days. Green Bay is riding high after a victory over the Minnesota Vikings. Did the Lions have kind of a maybe overlooking of the New York Giants? Maybe the Lions got caught peeping into the future at that Thanksgiving game. What do you think about that take? How about that one, Johnny? How about that one, folks? People? Throw that one out to the people. Did the Lions almost get caught by peeping into the future a little bit? Maybe looking past the Giants a little bit. Got the Packers on their mind. Letting the Packers live in there a little bit rent-free. Because I tell you what, I still believe that we got a good division here. Could be the best division in the NFL. If the Vikings didn't mess it up for us. But what are we going to do? The Vikings just beat us. So, I mean, I am getting sick of hearing, we got to clean it up, got to clean it up, got to clean it up, clean it up. Clean it up. We need some W's. I don't want to miss the playoffs. I definitely don't want to miss the playoffs. And right now, we're not in the playoffs. And that's just the reality of it. Rams, Seahawks, 49ers, pretty darn tough too. I remember a couple years ago when the NFC would have been a little bit easier to make it in. Now it feels like the NFC is better than the AFC. Steven says, happy Thanksgiving to you, Russell, and everyone in the chat. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. It's faith, family, then football. Let's get in there. Let's get back to our roots right here, because this is the mantra. Faith, family, and then football. We use football. We don't let football use us. We don't let football change us when we lose or when we have bad games. Use it for the positivity. Spend some time with your family. Create some memories with it. Don't let football use you. And also, just remember, we've been Lion fans for our whole life. I mean, I can count on one hand how many times we've been 7-4 with a shot to make the playoffs. I remember more years where November rolls around and we're already talking about draft picks. So let's not forget that. You know, and all of our critiques and all of our professional podcasting opinions, because there's a ton of us that are out there. And I'll tell you what, I never thought that I'd have to do this, but what the villain likes to do is I like to kind of take whatever's out there for the majority of the media and at least show you the other side of it. And there's so much negative propaganda that's out there. You know, I mean, most Lions podcasts, win or lose, they're not talking about how great everything is. After wins, they're talking about everything that's bad. After losses, obviously they talk about whatever's bad. So I try to show a positive spin on everything. Like last week, everybody was down on the Lions. Well, I like to give credit to the teams, you know, because I don't believe that there's any bad teams in the NFL. I don't believe that there's bad players in the NFL either. I think that you got to be pretty damn good to make it on an NFL team, whether you're playing backup, whether you're playing starter. You know, it doesn't matter. If you're on the practice squad, if you make an NFL roster, you're good at football. I don't care if you're if you're the best team in the league or you're 32. They're good. All the players are good. That's why the NFL is so beautiful. Because when you got all good players, the parity, you know, the difference between a top level team and a bottom level team isn't very much. That's why the Dallas Cowboys, that nobody believed could beat the Philadelphia Eagles, beat the Philadelphia Eagles. That's why the Miami Dolphins, when nobody believes that they can beat the Buffalo Bills, they beat the Buffalo Bills. It happens. It happens every week. So don't take wins for granted, because it's hard to win in the NFL. And yes, there's concerns. I'm not going to sit up here and sugarcoat everything and be like, oh, the offensive line's going to be great. It's awesome. La-di-da. It's like, that's what you do after a 52-0 drubbing. If there's nothing bad to say, there's nothing bad to say. You can brag about a big win like that. But most of the time, you're going to have some good, you're going to have some bad. But all that matters is at the end of the game, who has the most points, however you get there. And like I said, the offensive line didn't play good for 3 quarters, but you could have driven a semi through the hole that Jahmyr Gibbs ran through to score that final touchdown. They showed up when they needed to show up. And boy, that was exciting. I couldn't even believe it. Tell me, what was your feeling when Jahmyr Gibbs is running at 23 miles an hour down the sideline? You knew nobody was going to catch him. Becca says, I appreciate the positivity, Russ. It's refreshing. I don't mind being positive. There's a lot to be positive about, man. Plenty to be positive about. You're 7-4. 7-4 with a chance to make it into the playoffs. And all you have to do is get into the playoffs. And then anything can happen. The New York Giants won the Super Bowl with Eli Manning from the 6th seed. There was a 1 seed that year. Whoever the 1 seeds were that year, it was like, oh, those guys are going to win the Super Bowl. No. It just takes somebody getting into the playoffs and then winning 3 games. And then you're in the Super Bowl. That's it. Got to win a couple road games. I think the Lions can play well on the road. The Lions usually show up on the road. You know what's weird about the road games versus the home games is something that people don't really realize. Let's flip the script right here. It's like you love the home games, right? Because your crowd is like getting into it, and whenever the offense is out there, they have a hard time hearing, right? And the crowd can affect the game. And when your offense is out there, you know, they're all real quiet and they let you run the offense, and that's all real good too, right? But the opposite thing also happens, right? When you're out there on a road game, or when you're at a home game, your defense is out there during that same stuff where they can't hear. So when you're being real loud, so their offense can't hear it, you also have to remember that your loudness is affecting your defense. They can't hear the calls either. And it's opposite when you go on the road. And there's parts where it's like, I think that the Lions with their silent counts, they do pretty good with that. That they can do the things without hearing, and our defense plays better when they have the quiet time. It's a weird dynamic, but just remember that if the offense of the opposing team, when you're at home, can't hear, that also means your defense can't hear. Just a little food for thought right there. I don't know if that really hits you when you're watching it, but that happens. I love this comment right here. The Giants game was a reality check for the Lions. I expect teams to focus to be much better going into the last 6 games. That's a beautiful thing about a game like this. Like, the Lions played bad enough in this game that they can look at the tape and they can like almost view it like a loss. You got the victory. It counts as a win, but there's a ton of stuff that you got to learn from. You got to go into that tape and be like, yeah, you can't get beat that bad on a flea flicker. You know, I know everybody wants to make a play and they're trying to tell everybody to make a play, but you got to have your eyes and stay where you need to stay. And in both the instances of the trick plays that worked against us, you had a player that allowed that trick play, that he came off of his assignment because he wanted to make a play, and he left his assignment and left a wide open guy. Now, that's easily correctable because that's just going to be a yelling session from Kelvin Sheppard going, hey, do your job. Just do your job. Let that, I mean, you go out there and cover those. If you would have stayed on your guy, Amik Robertson, and not tried to come up and make the tackle, stayed on your guy and allowed the guys that were over there to make their tackle, because that's their job. That's what they were supposed to do. But you let that flea flicker, you know, when it came to the outside, all of a sudden you just abandon your guy that's all the way out there. That's what happened on both of those plays. Left the guy wide open. Those are easy fixes. Those are easy fixes on both of those trick plays. That's over 130 yards of their offense right there. Those trick plays. You know, is that them gashing our, I mean, statistically, it looks like they're gashing our defense, when really that's just one player trying to do more than he needs to do. You got to trust the rest of your players to make the plays. They had guys over there on that side. They had secondary guys. We had a safety over there. We had a linebacker over there. If that was a run to the outside, they would have tackled him. They had 3 guys over there. Amik, go out there and cover the guy you're supposed to cover. Don't leave your assignment anymore. That's it. On both those trick plays. So I love that comment, David. It's a reality check. We didn't lose the game, but film watching and getting better and preparing for the next team, you sure as hell can treat that like a loss. You can go into that room on defense and say, you should have lost that game. I'm glad that we stepped up when we needed to step up, but we can sure as hell play a hell of a lot better there. And up until that point, say, here's the thing. You don't think that Green Bay is going to look at that? I bet you Green Bay tries a trick play, because they got us on a couple trick plays. You better be prepared for a trick play, because if I got to watch that happen with Jordan Love, I'm not going to be happy. You got to learn from your mistakes. Learn from your mistakes. Dave says, been fan for 60 years. That was good. John says, Gibbs took over the fourth quarter and blew it open. So, final thoughts. Final thoughts. Let me give my final thoughts is exactly what David has said right there. It's reality check. Just be lucky. Be happy that you got to have your reality check on a win. That's the villain verdict. Thank you, David. That's the best way that you can put it right there. Just be thankful that you get your reality check on a win. You keep that streak alive. You haven't lost 2 games in a row since like 3 years ago. It's been a long time. My son and I were actually at that game that they lost their 2 in a row, their last 2 in a row game. And me going to road games, for a while, I was thinking that we were the bad luck charm. But we've won our last 2 road games that we've went to. So I think that we've changed that too. But I want to invite you guys. How y'all doing out there? So, I don't know if you guys like concerts, but before I take off on out of here, I want to invite you to something. I'm a 25-year musician. Before COVID, I was a touring musician in a whole bunch of different groups. But this is a very fun show that I do once a year, and I want to invite y'all to it. So, here's what I'll say. Detroit, Flint, 313 Nation, you all better mark the calendar in permanent ink because Friday, January 30th, 2026, it's about to get loud. Your boy, Russell Wayne, the 313 villain, is stepping out from behind the mic of the Villain Report and stepping right up on the stage as the lead vocalist of Toolology, the ultimate tribute to Tool. Yeah, you read that right. The UDFA of sports, the UDFA of Detroit sports is now the UDFA of melting faces in Flint, the Machine Shop, Flint, Michigan. Doors at 7 o'clock. It's usually $15 a ticket, but you know what? For the listeners of my show, all you got to do is send me a DM. And if you're going to make the trip, then the Villain's going to comp your ticket while supplies last. If you love Tool, if you love live music, if you love seeing the Villain firing off high notes like Aidan Hutchinson firing off the edge, this is your night. So let's pack this Machine Shop. Let's make it sound like Ford Field after a Hutch strip sack. Let's make Maynard James Keenan proud, or at least confused. So let me know if you want to go to the show. The Villain Squad can assemble, and you get to see the 313 Villain in a different light. And I know that you'll enjoy the show because it's a hell of a lot of fun. Because I'll tell you what's great about Tool fans is they're a lot like Detroit Lion fans. They get fired up, and it's a good time. The fans that come out to that show really enjoy the music, and we're going to do 90 minutes of just rock out Tool. And I'll give you a spoiler alert too. If you're a Tool fan that has actually been to Tool concerts lately, you're gonna hear 70% of the new album. We don't do any of the new album. We do all of the good old stuff. All of the good old stuff that Tool does not play at their shows anymore. And it's okay. You know, I'm not gonna give Tool a hard time by trying to promote their music. You know, you made an album, you want to promote your album. But the thing is they have so much good old music that the guys that are in my group, we've decided that we want to give Tool fans something that they don't normally get. I mean, if you want to go see Tool, go see Tool. And Tool's going to play all their new stuff. If you want to hear the new stuff, that's fine. But if you want to hear stuff from Anima, you know, stuff from, you know, the 10,000 Days album or the Lateralis album, then this is your show. You definitely want to come to it. So I would love to see you guys out there. So DM me if you want to go, and I'll comp your ticket. Let's do that. So I want to thank everybody for taking part in the show today. My name is Russell Wayne, and this is the Lion Villain Report. This has been Victory Monday. We love celebrating the victory. That's right. Brought to you by fanatics.com. If you want to gear up like the real one right there, hit that QR code, save up to 50, oh God, I can't even say that own shit. Save up to 25% off of your order by hitting that QR code, and you're welcome for that. If you want to do official, if you don't want to do any of those knockoffs, you want to do official, do Fanatics. Get yours. Connect with me. If you're a fan of Detroit sports and you're not following, there's where you do it. Like, comment, share, subscribe. If you're a fan of Detroit sports, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, wherever you scroll, the Villain rolls. And that's what's up. So thank you for that. Faith, family, and then football in that order. We use football. Spend time with your family. Use football. Create some memories. Don't let football use you. Don't let it change you if the Lions are to lose. So thank you so much for being part of the show. Oh, where's my thing? I'm screwing it all up. Come on, Russ. All right. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord shine his face upon you until we meet again in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you so much. I'm Russell Wayne. I'll see you in the next video. Peace out. I love that comment, Skip. I'm sorry that I missed that one. Thank God they went for it on 4th down instead of taking the 3. LOL. Sound familiar? Yeah, that one bit him in the ass. Great comment. Thanks, Skip.
You like that?